What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer. Now that we're officially in Overwatch 2 Season 2, it's time for me to do yet another video where I take a look at the state of the game and consider how things have changed over the first couple months. Has Overwatch 2 improved? Has it gotten worse? Has it stayed the same? Or has it done some enigmatic fourth option which I can't think of for the sake of this opening bit? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about here in today's video, and first and foremost, let's start off by talking about by far the most exciting new content addition with Season 2, which is the brand new tank hero, Ramattra. Now, Ramattra has been interesting, to say the least. On a mechanical level, he is a phenomenally fun hero to play, poking at enemies from range with his nanite staff before then switching into Nemesis mode to see how fast you can say daddy tempo tank. But the issues with Ramattra, or at the very least the perceived issues, mainly come down to his power level. Now, before Ramattra released and any of us actually got to play him, on paper, he sounded like an incredibly overpowered hero. His dual forms, the tanky brawliness of his Nemesis form, it all felt like it was going to give him quite a bit of strength, and people were understandably worried that he was going to be broken right out of the gate. Then, once he finally launched with Season 2, many players found him to be the exact opposite. They thought he was trash tier, he couldn't hold a candle to any of the other tank heroes, and everyone just sort of immediately wrote him off as being terrible. Well, then we all actually spent some time playing him, got a feel for how he is in actual matches against other players, and now, at least for me personally, I've settled on the idea that he's decent, but probably a little underpowered. I think a lot of the whiplash that's been going on with Ramattra and how he's perceived in the community has a lot to do with how Blizzard sort of built him up as this cool, imposing tank character that naturally sort of built up in people's minds that he was going to be a powerhouse, only for him to be, well, pretty average, which of course then by comparison felt terrible. A lot of people, myself included, initially sort of thought of Nemesis as almost an ultimate in the sense of how it gives him extra power, makes him extra tanky, and he can deal these damaging punches to obliterate the enemy. When in actuality, Nemesis form is a lot more of like a defensive tanky type ability. I think actually the best comparison ability I've found for Nemesis form is Orisa's Fortify, where it's something you pop to sort of withstand a bunch of incoming damage, as opposed to something you use to get a massive team kill, let's say. In fact, I've noticed that there's a ton of similarities between Ramattra and Orisa. Both have a primary fire that's good at poking at targets from range. His Nemesis form, as I mentioned, is essentially just Fortify, and his block ability while in Nemesis form is kinda just Orisa's Javelin Spin in the way it protects him from frontal damage. On top of this, both of them have damaging AoE ultimate abilities that force them into their tanky versions, being Nemesis form and Fortify respectively. So yeah, in hindsight, despite the fact that people were initially comparing him to heroes like Sigma and Doomfist because of his punching and barrier and everything, in terms of actual gameplay, he definitely feels much more similar to Orisa in terms of playstyle than any of the other tanks. However, I think the main issue that actually ends up coming about with this similarity is that overall, he kind of just feels like a weaker version of Orisa. Nemesis form doesn't have any of the crowd control resistance that Fortify does. Block ultimately just isn't as effective as Javelin Spin in terms of damage mitigation, and of course, doesn't give him a speed boost. In fact, it gives him the opposite. It slows him down while he's using it. The one aspect which Ramattra does have over Orisa, though, is the fact that his defensive abilities feel a bit more versatile, in that the block you can just sort of bring up and down as you please and need be, and Nemesis form overall has a shorter cooldown than Fortify, which just allows you to use it more often. All that being said, though, I do think Ramattra needs some sort of buff or extra edge given to him, because in terms of a power level, I think it's sort of undeniable that other tank heroes just do what he does better. Now, I understand this is an issue that Overwatch is inevitably going to end up in sooner or later, just because there's kind of only a finite number of things an in-game hero can actually do, but when it comes to Ramattra, I definitely like to see him get some little buffs, little tweaks to make him feel a bit better, especially in his Nemesis form, which visually and conceptually seems really powerful and really amazing, but then in practice, ultimately just sort of makes your hitbox bigger, which means people can kill you more easily. But speaking of heroes and balance, let's talk a little bit about the balance changes that came with Overwatch 2 Season 2. As a tank main personally, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the tank heroes who got notable changes. First, of course, being Doomfist. Doomfist has gotten a rather delectable serving of buffs in this season, which I've seen a lot of people say currently make him OP. And while I will admit that he is certainly quite a bit stronger than he was in last season, I don't really think he's as strong as everyone's claiming him to be. Yeah, I've had quite a bit more success playing him since the season started, and I've certainly seen the number of people playing him increase pretty substantially. But overall, I personally haven't found him too difficult to deal with. Yeah, he's certainly stronger, but he's still just Doomfist. You sleep him, and then you just dogpile him, and the dude dies. I will admit, he does make life for enemy support players a living nightmare, but let's be honest, that's just every tank hero at this point pretty much. And I am inclined to say that he's probably on the stronger side of the tank roster that we have currently, but I don't think he's quite as OP as everyone thinks. He's strong, but yeah, he can still be dealt with. Speaking of tank buffs though, Junker Queen was the other hero to get some buffs, or maybe I should just say changes, because she almost got as many nerfs as she got buffs in this latest season. But despite what a lot of people have been calling a rather underwhelming buff for Junker Queen overall, I've actually been finding myself having quite a bit of success with the hero. I'm honestly not sure what it is exactly, but she does feel more survivable, more capable of being a tank hero with these latest changes. So while I can't really explain the phenomenon by just looking at her stats and the balance changes she got, all I can tell you is that from my experience playing her in Season 2, she does feel better, which is good. I'd certainly hope she feels better in the season where she gets a mythic skin, and while I certainly wouldn't say she's so good that she's a meta pick at the moment, she definitely can hold her own at the time being and is a fun hero to play. You don't just get endlessly stomped by the enemy anymore, and that's a good thing if you ask me. Moving on from tanks though, how are the other roles? Well, damage is still damage. The damage roll passive change has had a effect, I guess. I don't think it's really overall impacted how most damage heroes play, and when it comes to individual hero changes we got in this patch, Sojourn is still an absolute menace that I despise going up against, and Bastion's ultimate is still trash. Great. Good to see there are no changes here on the DPS front. And the support role? How about them? Have they finally gotten those much needed buffs to make the role overall not completely and utterly miserable to play? Nope. They're just as helpless and unfun to play as they were in Season 1, with no overly notable changes coming for any of them on the individual level, save of course for Kiriko's Fox getting its knees bashed in. So by and large, much like the damage role, support heroes are still support heroes, and if you somehow enjoyed playing them in Season 1, you're probably going to keep enjoying playing them in Season 2. But otherwise, I think you know what to expect when you queue into Flex Roll. Alright, now let's move on to some of the more technical content aspects of Season 2. Before I delve into anything interesting on this front, I am contractually obligated to mention that map pools are still a thing this season. Blizzard removed Watchpoint Gibraltar and Hollywood in favor of returning Rialto and Blizzard World. And let me check down here. Yes, I am required to mention that map pools are still terrible, and Blizzard, please remove them. Do not read this last part out loud. Please phrase in your own word. Oh, shoot. Yeah, map pools still suck. Blizzard, please get rid of them. Nobody likes them, and there's no good reason for them to exist. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Speaking of maps though, we did get a brand new map in Overwatch 2 Season 2, Shambali Monastery, which is a phenomenal new escort map. Honestly, switching over to a bit more of a positive note, I do love basically everything about this new map. The aesthetics of it are phenomenal, the map theme is an absolute banger, and gameplay-wise, I've been having a lot of fun with it. I do have one little nitpick with this new map though, which is that it's evidently not very well optimized, as quite frequently when playing on this map, especially leading up to the first payload checkpoint, I very frequently end up getting frame drops, and I know I'm not the only one to be experiencing this. I'm assuming it has to do with the weather effects of the map, with all the snowfall and everything, probably in conjunction with the fact that the map itself is quite big. Clearly it wasn't well optimized, and thus, there's technical issues with it. Hopefully this is something Blizzard ends up fixing later down the line with future patches and updates and whatnot, but I will mention that Shambali Monastery Monastery unfortunately isn't the only new content addition this season that causes this issue. The new overcast version of Blizzard World, which is the new default quick play and competitive version of the map, also has these exact same issues. Again, I'm assuming it's the weather effects that are causing the frame drops, but it's still annoying nonetheless. And even the new Hero Ramattra, who I've already talked about, but I guess we'll be going back to him at this point. Every now and again, I'll notice that when the enemy Ramattra uses his ultimate, I just get absolutely massive frame drops, which, by the way, do stack with the frame drops in Blizzard World and Shambali Monastery, which can sometimes make for quite the combination. So needless to say, it seems like basically all the major content additions with Overwatch 2 Season 2, at least in the, gameplay content side of things, seem to be having some technical issues of some kind or another. Again, hopefully this is something that Blizzard will sort of polish and iron out as time goes on, but we'll just have to wait and see, and hope for the best, which, always works out when it comes to Blizzard. Also, I should talk about quickly the issues many people were having with competitive rewards from the end of Season 1, where many people evidently weren't getting the right amount of competitive points based off of what their end of season rank was, and then starting off in Season 2, basically everyone was massively deranked, with their MMR still being where it was normally, so your rank wasn't accurately representing your MMR, but of course you can't actually see your MMR, so we'll just have to take Blizzard's word on that one. Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really play competitive that much. I'm what's known as a pro casual, which means I'm a quick play aficionado, and when it comes to competitive, I barely touch this stuff. But for those of you who do play competitive, I understand this must be a very frustrating thing to have to deal with, and Blizzard has thus far done a terrible job of explaining the situation and giving an answer for why it is the way it is. So yeah, gonna have to chalk that one up as another miss for Blizzard. And the last thing I'd like to touch on in today's State of Overwatch 2 Season 2 video is the monetization and cosmetic system. How have things improved? Has Blizzard finally listened to the fans and lowered the prices of skins in-game and made it a more player-friendly experience? Kind of? Basically, they made it so that free-to-play players can unlock the new Hero Ramattra by only having to reach tier 45 of the Battle Pass, as opposed to tier 55, which is where Kiriko was in Season 1, which is nice, I guess? It's kind of like Blizzard saying, hey, we're only gonna beat you with this lead pipe 7 times instead of 8. Aren't you thrilled? Yeah, I guess I'm thrilled. Look, I still hate the idea of heroes being in the Battle Pass, but I understand that it's something Blizzard has firmly settled on at this point, and they're almost certainly never going to change it. It's just the reality of Overwatch 2 being free to play and how games like this are structured nowadays. So sure, I'm glad he's 10 levels lower on the Battle Pass for free to play players, but it still doesn't really feel great. One thing which does feel good though, and I do think Blizzard should be genuinely complimented for, is the fact that they've made updates to the weekly challenges so that they're easier to finish and thus easier to get the free experience and Overwatch coins that you get from completing them. Overall, it mainly plays out where you just have to win fewer matches every week in order to finish all the challenges and thus get all your coins, which is a nice quality of life change, and I'm glad it's something Blizzard did. However, unfortunately, the weekly challenges are still the only way for players to get Overwatch coins for free. There aren't any Overwatch coins in the Battle Pass whatsoever. There's no other seasonal challenges or things like that which grant coins. It's only the weekly challenges, and you can still only get a total of 60 per week, which is something that I absolutely think Blizzard needs to look into changing as time goes on. And I get it, it probably takes a while for them to sort of plan out and actually implement major changes like this. So am I surprised that Season 2 is the way it is when it comes to earning coins and cosmetics? No, but I am rather disappointed. I would like to see more player-friendly changes in this regard, and again, hopefully, maybe it's something we'll end up seeing later down the line with future seasons, but as for Season 2, it's more or less going to be just as difficult to grind those cosmetics through Overwatch coins, since Overwatch coins are slightly easier to grind, but ultimately you're not really going to be getting any more coins than you could previously in Season 1. So yeah, a slight shift in a better direction, but ultimately nothing major or exciting to praise in terms of improving the cosmetic side of things. things. And I think that about does it for this State of Overwatch 2 video. Thank you all so much for watching, and definitely let me know your thoughts on Season 2 in the comments down below. Do you think Season 2 is an improvement over Season 1? Or maybe you're disappointed by how little has actually been improved? Either way, I'd love to hear from you, and as always, be sure to subscribe, follow me on Twitter, hit up that bell icon, and come join my Discord server to hang out and never miss any of my future Overwatch content. Special thanks to my YouTube channel members who help make these videos possible, and if you'd like to join them to earn some cool rewards, then just hit that join button down below. Otherwise, this is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.